In this video, we are going to talk about how to find the domain of a logarithmic function and how to express the answer in interval notation. Now, I'm also going to show you how to check your answer using Desmos or any scientific calculator. Once you think the answer is what it is, you can check it, and I'll promise I'll show you how to do that. Now, why do we have to worry about the domain of log? Isn't it all real numbers? Now, what I want you to do is go back to the exponential and look at your notes for any exponential function. So for exponential function, the domain is all real numbers, so negative infinity to infinity. But the range, the answer, was not negative to infinity. In fact, for exponential function, you can never get a negative answer. So you're actually going to get anything starting with 0 and going to positive infinity. That's the range. And 0 was not included. You cannot get 0. For example, when you raise 2 to some power, you can't get 0. There's no way. You can only get a positive answer. Now, for the log, because log is actually inverse function of exponential. And for inverse functions, we switch the domain and the range. So log actually will be only defined for positive answers, not for 0, not for negative. And the range is going to be negative infinity to infinity. So see how they flip? Now, if you forget, just use a calculator and say, okay, can I find log of a negative number, like log of negative 1? Nope, it's telling you it's undefined. Can I find log of negative 0.1 maybe? Nope. Can I find log of negative 1,000? No. What about 0? Is that okay? No, it's not. Okay, but if I put a positive number like 0.1, sure, it gives me an answer. Or 2, yes, it gives me an answer. 100, yes. So only positive answers are okay to put into the log. Now, let's go back to our specific function. So we want to know what is the domain of log with base 2 of x plus 2 plus 6. Here's what I want you to focus on. Do not worry about the plus 6 and don't worry about the base of the log. It actually does not make any difference. So whether it's log with base 2 over here, or 5, or 1/3, or whatever, it makes no difference. The only thing that you should focus on is what is this thing doing that you are applying log to what? And that what has to be greater than 0. So immediately you focus on what is log applied to. Log is applied to x plus 2. And that something should be a positive answer. In other words, more than 0. Do not make a mistake and think it's more than or equal to 0. Because when it's equal, it's actually not good either. Because remember, log of 0 is undefined. And that means the inequality is what we call strict. So it's strictly more than 0, cannot be equal to 0. Okay, how do we solve that? Well, this is going to be if I subtract 2 from both sides. The inequality sign does not change if you add or subtract numbers to both sides. And that's just going to give me x greater than negative 2. Now, how do I express that on the number line? So I have here a number line drawn. So just imagine that this is 0. This is, say, negative 1. This is negative 2. Okay? So you want to say, okay, it's greater than, more than negative 2. Okay, so on the number line, just I want you to mark negative infinity is on the left, positive infinity on the right. So you are saying I'm going to start at negative 2 and go all the way up. I'm more than negative 2. Now, negative 2 itself is not included, so we're going to put like an empty circle around it. And then everything that's more than that, all the way to positive infinity, is going to be your domain. How do we express that in interval notation? Well, we're going to start at negative 2, and then we're going to go to infinity. Now, infinity is never, ever included. It's always going to be a parentheses, not a square bracket. And negative 2 in this case, because this is an empty circle. Remember, log of 0 is undefined. So at negative 2, this thing is not going to be defined because negative 2 plus 2 is 0, right? And log of 0 is undefined. So when I write it in interval notation, I do not include negative 2 either. Okay? Now, so it's going to be something like that. Now, I promised you that I'm going to show you how to check the answer using Desmos calculator. Okay, so let me show you how to do that. Again, it doesn't matter what the base is. I think that this is the domain. Let me plug negative 2 in for x. Is this going to be defined? No. Okay, but then how about negative 1? That's part of this interval, so that should be good. Yep, it's giving me an answer. How about 5 or 6, negative 6? No. So anything that's below negative 2 is not defined, but anything that's above negative 2, so for example 5, that is defined, and that means that it looks like what I got is correct.